welcome to Founders Raw.
Cheers.
Cheers. So Cameron, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. We've known each other a while, but I want to sit down and chat with you about your experience as a founder and an entrepreneur, and maybe just let's go back to the beginning. Where'd you grow up? What were your interests, and then how did you get into becoming an entrepreneur?
So I grew up in Edmonds, just north of here.
Okay.
And weird thing about me, I was homeschooled, actually. Never went to public school. I went to community college. I did Running Start. So
up through the whole time you were homeschooled?
My first experience with public education was, semi-public. Community college was, I was 15.
No way.
Yeah. So I started going there. And I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. Actually, I wanted to be in the Marines. So I was told that I needed to letter in a varsity sport to get into the Naval Academy. So I actually went out for football at Kaniak High School my senior year and played football there, and then did Running Start. And I ended up graduating with, I lettered, and I ended up graduating with my 2-year degree and my high school degree.
At the same time?
Yeah, but I had gone to the Naval Academy the summer before that and decided that I didn't really want to do military. I kind of locked into the same thing for 20 years.
Yeah.
If you go to the academy, you're going to career. And I didn't want to make that decision. So I had a couple choices. Well, being Running Start, having the transfer degree, you pretty much have to go to a state school for your credits to count. So it was like UW, Western, Central, or Eastern doesn't count. So I wanted to do mechanical engineering because my friend's dad was a mechanical engineer. It sounded hard. And I didn't want to live by my parents, so I went over to Wazoo.
As far as I can go.
Yeah, it ended up being a really good decision. Pullman's great. You just kind of out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
You study or hang out with people, and it was really, it was good for me. I socialized a lot, made a lot of friends. I was president of the sailing team for a couple of years. We actually sailed on the Snake River out there, and what was really fun about that, we'd come over and compete against UW or Western or big regional meets almost every week. Okay. So that was fun.
And so you did all the extracurricular activities. You sailed.
Yeah, so at Wazoo, and then I think I got into entrepreneurship. So I did mechanical engineering. I had this awesome professor who's like old school NASA, totally awesome guy. And he got me a job at Northrop Grumman over the summer as like an extended internship. I worked for the advanced aero department, so I worked next to the guys that did the B-2 stealth bomber.
Oh wow.
The wing anyway for it.
Yeah.
I got a security clearance and worked on some awesome projects, like what you'd want to do as a mechanical engineer. Like top job. And I hated it. It was like project you worked on, maybe a 10-year project. I parked next to this airplane called the YF-23. It was actually an F-22 competitor, and they built 2 of them. It lost the bid against the F-22 for political reasons. It actually, according to the people there, it had better performance, but Northrop had won a contract right before, so they gave that contract to Lockheed. Totally political reasons.
Interesting.
And that just really opened my eyes to, I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. And the summer before that, I had done this, actually it was earlier that summer. I did this engineering entrepreneurship program through Wazoo, and it was like they took a bunch of engineers and put them in a room and said, this is a balance sheet, this is a P&L, right? And we didn't know what the heck we were looking at. We didn't really learn anything in the class, but what was cool is we went down to Silicon Valley and got to meet tons of entrepreneurs. So,
what year was this?
God, that would have been summer 2008.
Oh,
so
wow.
actually I met Elon Musk. A Wazoo alum was like pretty high up in Tesla, and he got us in a room with Elon Musk and the CEO of Tesla at the time. And I got to shake his hand and talk to him.
What was your takeaway, real quickly, what one thing or 2 things that you took away from meeting him?
From meeting Elon Musk? So I actually asked him, everyone else was asking questions like typical college students, they don't know what to ask. So they quote something out of a book and it just sounds retarded, right? But he talked about his story a bit, and that guy's just been beat down constantly, right? Oh, yeah. So I asked him, and it was a problem that I was having at the time. I said, what keeps you going? Why do you keep doing this if it's so hard? And because he didn't need the money. And he said, he stopped and he thought about it, and he was like, well, I guess that's just how I'm wired. That was his answer. And I totally feel that.
Yeah.
Why do you do this? I don't have to do this. Well, just how you're wired.
And just to kind of go on that for a second, I've watched a number of interviews with him recently, and he's a couple levels above where he is now, or back when you were talking with him.
Yeah, they were about to fail.
And what's crazy is, his story is so crazy, but now he answers the same way. And I am fascinated with how his whole goal is not money at all. It's doing the impossible. And it almost sucks that we don't have enough people in this world that think like that. And what keeps him going is, why the hell would he not, right? Like,
right.
He sees problems, massive problems, transportation, energy, and it's not just another social sharing app. You know, here's a picture, I'm gonna share it with my friends.
Yeah, well, I think he sees
amazing.
that in order for society and technology to advance, there are certain obstacles that have to be overcome, and he picks them and attacks them. You know, and I really respect that.
And what I think it is, I mean, it's his belief that impossible is actually not true. It's just there's obviously obstacles to get through, but he attacks problems without the thought of impossible. And that to me is really amazing.
I really like the way he talks about his approach, and he has a background in physics, and he says he always looks at fundamentals first. Yeah. Which is totally true, and you have that kind of background in engineering too. You know, some things aren't possible because they're not practical, right?
Yeah.
So you shouldn't not that you shouldn't solve the problem, but maybe one solution is not the best implementation, or it's not like an ideal solution. Yeah. But he starts from first principles and actually does some cool stuff. Yeah. Like, have you seen the? I was at the Museum of Flight for this thing called Space. It was Space Up. It was some sort of. They had Blue Origin, Bezos' company. They had SpaceX, Near Earth Resources, the one, the asteroid mining one.
Oh yeah.
They're over in Bellevue. They're doing the satellites right now. And NASA there too, and they showed some new video of the Dragon landing vertically.
Oh, wow.
They have rockets that fly up, right?
Yeah.
Deliver the payload and land vertically.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's insane.
Yeah, totally crazy.
But so you had the opportunity to meet him, and that highly influenced you, I would assume.
Elon Musk was great, and I met a bunch of other founders. Probably the one that stuck the most is a guy named Jim McGrath. So he did Leapfrog. That wasn't his first startup. He went to MIT and was involved in a couple startups, or at least one that I know of. But he did Leapfrog, the kids game. Yeah. And talked about that. It was pretty cool. But then he also shared, if we have time, I'll share it with you. It's really stuck with me.
This is great.
And I didn't understand it as much at the time. I just thought it was a cool story. But he said, he's between startups or something, and he didn't have as much money as he usually did. So him and his friends just chartered a boat in the French Polynesia, right? They just chartered a sailboat. They didn't buy it, or I don't know what else they would have done, but I was like, that sounds like rich to me, but whatever. So the guy they chartered it from told them that when they got to this one island, they should snorkel over this place and then swim into this cave. And he gave them all the landmarks and stuff. Yeah. So when they got there, his girlfriend stayed on the boat, but the rest of them jumped in the water and swam over there. And the ocean waves were above the entrance to the cave, which is really dangerous, right? You don't swim into places like that. And so they're talking about what they should do, and one of their buddies just went for it. He went down, went into the cave, and he didn't come out for a while. And so they're sitting out there, wondering what they should do. And he comes back out and says, guys, you gotta come in here and check this out. So they all go in, and there's this cave, after there's a tunnel, and then this kind of cavern, and the ocean's coming up and down, and the water's going up and down in the cavern. And when the ocean comes up, it compresses the air in the cavern, and there's a phase transition, it turns instant cloud, right? The pressure increases, bam, cloud. And then the water comes back down, bam, clear. And he said it was the most amazing, incredible experience he's ever had, but it was also extremely painful on his inner ear.
I bet, yeah.
Because of the pressure change. And he said that's what entrepreneurship was. It was simultaneously the most beautiful, amazing thing you've ever been through, and the most extremely painful,
that is
why am I here kind of thing.
That's one of the best examples I've heard. I mean, I tell it to people every day. It's it sucks. It's the worst thing you'll ever go through. At the same time, it's the most incredible thing you'll ever do. Mm-hmm. Outside of maybe marriage or children or whatever.
What's the lifestyle?
And it's like what you're describing, where they're experiencing something that they can't even describe to anyone else, right? Mm-hmm. That's really what entrepreneurship is you're risking something, you're going and possibly risking your life like he was, and yet the payoff can be so amazing.
Right.
And typically
we've both been through that, right?
Yeah.
We both
Oh yeah.
experience.
Oh yeah, we'll get there. But let's go forward.
So after that, that was a great summer. Then I was in LA working for Northrop Grumman. It was great. I don't know if I should say this on camera. There was like an accounting error, and I was making way more money than I should have.
Yes.
So I was living it up in LA. We were like on Manhattan Beach, just having a great time. I wasn't 21 yet, thankfully.
Yeah.
I'd have gotten in trouble.
Would have been bad.
But I was just having a great time. Surfed after work every day. But then one time after surfing, I was sitting there looking at the ocean, and it was like probably the most Hollywood moment I've ever had in my entire life. I just thought, you know what, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
I can't work for a company and do something I don't believe.
And how long were you down there?
About. 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was quick. Like you're down there, and then you're like.
It was quick,
wait.
but it was the first time like, you know, I got in my car at Wazoo and I just drove straight to LA.
Damn.
One shot.
Yeah.
And it was just like instant like life change, right? Like clean slate. And it was the first time I'd ever had that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I decided that I was going to start my own company. So I started my first one in college. It was a nutraceutical company. Mm-hmm. So it's luckily Northrop paid me a lot, and I saved up some of the money and used that to start a study supplement company. So you know, a lot of people abuse Adderall.
Yeah.
And I think the New York Times said 1 in 5 college students abuse Adderall, and that was ones that admitted it. From my experience, it's higher than that.
Yeah.
So I came up with a study supplement, basically like Focus Factor, but marketed towards students and their parents. Came up with the formula, got them manufactured in New York, I got accounting for dummies. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Learned the whole process. And so we got them manufactured in New York, started selling them, kind of broke even. We weren't able to sell enough to really grow the business at all. We were just kind of selling out our inventory.
And is this like, were you housing them in a warehouse or anything, or was it like drop ship, just like?
Actually, one of my professors, he ended up being the CEO of my second startup. He had a big building there, and he let me have a desk and room for my boxes for free, and I was fulfilling them myself. Yeah. So that was actually my first time fulfilling orders, and the first order comes through, it's crazy. We did the whole Facebook CPC stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was my first one, and that kind of morphed into the second one, which is EcoWell. They were environmentally friendly vending machines.
Okay.
So I was in that building, and there's another startup there, kind of at the same level as me. They just had an idea, and Don Tilden, he ended up being the CEO of EcoWell, this next company. He's the one that had the building, and he's also one of my professors. He taught this class called Technology Ventures. Mm-hmm. He ran a couple I think it was actually just one major company before this.
And was this in Washington or New York?
This was in Pullman.
Pullman, okay.
Yeah, in Pullman. And I was going to college at the time. I graduated in the middle of it. But so we started this company doing environmentally friendly vending machines, like all the environmentally friendly stuff. Like you have to really look hard for that part of it. But there were touchscreen vending machines that was cool. You walked up, you swiped a tag. It knew like who you were, what you drank in the past, and what your friends were drinking.
Interesting.
So you could mix and match a custom drink. You could choose hot, cold, or carbonated water, mix and match up to 12 100% natural fruit juices, and then add a supplement or a sweetener. So my company did the supplements. And while they were doing prototypes, they needed an engineer to actually design the thing, right? Just had this idea.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing all the mechanical and fluid design, and wrote the patent, and came on board as a co-founder. We raised like 1.5, 1.7 million, built 10 of them, deployed them all over the state. That was my first startup.
Yeah.
Like real startup, 18 hours a day.
Yeah. And describe that feeling to some people that maybe don't know, but going from a kind of side business, okay, I'm kind of doing this, to this is a serious startup. How would you describe that maybe to someone that doesn't understand that? What does it feel like to be part
it's a
of
high,
startup?
right? It's an extreme high.
Yeah.
It's you get more pleasure out of that than anything else. You just can't wait to get up the next day and work on it. And
I think the way I describe it is, it goes from when you're planning a startup, it's everything forward thinking. We're gonna do this, and here's our slide decks, or here's what we're gonna do. It goes from the future to the present, where you're we're doing this. This is, and then you just feel it turn. You turn the corner to okay, you do have customers, you do have a product.
You're an entity.
Yeah. You're you have money in the bank.
And people treat you like a real business, and you're like, dude, it's just us,
Yeah.
That's always the weirdest thing.
And I think that's the high, is when you start to see other people outside of your team actually are grabbing your vision and trying to run with it.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like that's the first corner to turn. There's obviously many others, but
There's the revenue corner too.
yeah. So you guys, so fast forward a little bit, and you obviously kind of left that company or whatever. How did that turn out?
Yeah, so I think it was 2010. We were going for another round of financing. Everything was dried up. It was dried up. It was hard to get financing in general, and then we hadn't hit a bunch of our metrics. There were some team issues I learned a lot about. So we ended up just putting everything in a storage unit and went our separate ways. I left kind of like a month before everything went in the storage unit because it was like we weren't going to be able to make salary. Then I had another position open up. That ended up falling through, and then I was over here in West Seattle, just unemployed, living with my girlfriend. Bad. It was bad. Bad times. I watched every movie on Amazon Prime. I swear.
Feeling like shit. God,
it's the worst.
Yeah,
it's the worst. But I've definitely been there. So I found this job at another startup, actually here in Georgetown, and they were doing overseas manufacturing. They made these fuel-efficient outdoor cooking equipment. So main thing was pizza ovens. These really cool pizza ovens, the wood-fired pizza ovens. So I got on as an engineer and project manager for them. There were five of us, and I learned how to make stuff overseas. And I was like, it's not that hard,
So that company was that China as well that they were?
Yeah, so that was my intro to China.
Okay.
And I got to go over to China actually just backing up a little bit. So as I was working with them, I met this guy named Andrew Havlis at a Seattle Bravo event. It's like the opera thing. And I told him about my startup experience. We were just in line at the bar or something. I told him about my startup experience. He thought that was interesting. He was doing a side project of his own, and he thought it'd be really interesting to start a company around bed bugs, because he had just gotten bed bugs. He lived in, right by the Pacific Place. Yeah. He lives in an apartment right by Pacific Place, and he didn't get them. A guy a couple doors down, I think a couple doors and a floor down, got them. They spread throughout the building. Yeah. We had to get to the wiring and the cracks and that kind of thing.
This is insane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've never experienced that,
right.
Thankfully, and hopefully I don't, but how does he go from, because most people don't do this, how does he go from, oh God, bed bugs, to we need to solve this problem? That's an interesting transition.
Yeah, I think he just saw that when he was searching online for answers, they're just, how blogs are. People claim all sorts of stuff. You never self-diagnose on the internet. That's like a rule, right? And there are a lot of people doing that. So he saw that there was an opportunity. He wanted a better solution. And so we started talking about it, and I looked up, because of my experience with Equal, I knew revenue was very important.
Yeah.
So I was looking at things that we could make revenue off of while we developed a strategy of how to enter the bed bug market, because it was a big growing market. And what happened after that? So I was working for this other company. They're direct global sales, the one down at Georgetown. And I started building this other product in parallel. I actually went down to Home Depot right here on like First and Lander. I got a heater, some other stuff, made my first bed bug oven. And I was like, wow, this is really easy to make. I mean, I can totally design something like this and make it overseas. Yeah. So I started looking for manufacturers overseas. I met this one guy, Ben, who's become an awesome personal friend. He's a Chinese national. He lives in Ningbo, which is where our factories are. That's maybe 2 hours south of Shanghai. Yeah. Shanghai's on this bay. It's at the top. Ningbo's on the bottom. So I met him online, and then I arranged to meet him when I was over in China for my other job. So I took a train down, met him, went to the heater factory. Heaters were like the biggest issue for us. Went to a heater factory. He helped us negotiate a price with them and delivery of like a really small order. And
wow,
it worked out.
So I think most people that maybe have an idea that think, okay, maybe I could get some manufacturing done in China. How did you go from that idea to actually trusting Ben? Because I think that's the biggest thing is, can I trust this person who you kind of think they're on their side, not our side, but you know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
that's
they're
a
on their own
difficult
side.
thing, right?
Not Ben's a family friend, but I definitely didn't have any reason to trust him then.
Yeah.
It's
just like a leap of faith.
It's like anything else. You don't have to trust, right? You control money, and that's what matters.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whoever controls the money wins. So there are a lot of ways. There's like escrow. There's holding bill of lading. There are ways to make sure that your product's what you ordered, and you get what I do now. So we place an order, we put it 30% down for the order. So the factory could take the 30% and run, right?
Yeah.
But it's only 30% of the order. The factory builds the shipment. Then before you send in the remaining 70%, you have your own inspection team go there and check out the product. Yeah.
And, okay, a few others.
Well, actually, I've got another company in China that does it.
Okay.
So they go inspect the product. If it looks good, you have it shipped. And so while the container's on the ocean heading towards you, you know it's good product. The manufacturer still has this thing called the bill of lading. It's basically a title that owns the container. And they don't release that to you until you wire the money. So there's kind of this no man's land while the container's on the ship coming towards you. And we just had this happen now. We've actually got a ship docking in port today.
Okay.
And we just got the bill of lading for that maybe a week ago. So you final wire, they send you a bill of lading, and ownership swapped. But it's so it's not insecure, and you can get screwed. But you know, if you live your life worrying about getting screwed all the time, you're not gonna live.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, you know, you have to be careful, but they want to make money, right? Chinese are very savvy, and they're not. They've got kind of a lot of people I talk to think the Chinese, you know, they're a communist country, right? But they're more capitalist than most Americans I've met. They're very serious about making money.
And so now, you're saying Ben is
so
really just a
now,
part of the team, and
yes, I went and hung out with Ben that one time. I've been over there 4 months out of this year so far. Or no, sorry, not 4 months. 1.5 months.
Okay.
I was thinking weeks. Yeah. So 1.5 months this year, and spend almost every day with him and his family. His daughter calls me Susu Uncle, and we're just hanging out all the time, go on little vacations together. Yeah, it's great. I talk to him almost every day now.
Yeah.
And he actually has Zapplug China set up for us. So he's got a warehouse. We rent out a small space from him, and it's pretty.
So
awesome.
how do you go about, given it's manufactured in China, how do you go about prototyping and developing for their products?
So it's been a big
that process.
We've had to learn a lot there.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to have a prototype that's almost exactly what you want, like as close to exactly what you want as possible. That you
and
send over
are
there.
you still kind of doing the let's go to Home Depot and just paste it together?
Yeah, my mom actually does most of our sewing for us. She's a seamstress. She does wedding dresses and stuff, and so she sews up most of our prototypes.
Yeah.
Actually, last week we've got a new carry bag for some accessories for a new product. She sewed up a prototype and actually hit China over the weekend, and they're working on. So what happens? You do your prototype as close to what you want as possible. Then you write up a document that describes everything about the prototype, right? In exhaustive detail, you say everything 3 times in 3 different ways, so their Google Translate can get it right.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get a sample from them, and if it's good, you order. If not, you do another iteration. But as close as you can get to the final product, the better.
And is it do you just have to whatever time frame you think it's going to be, just double that time frame, just because there's always back and forth and stuff? Or how do you deal with it? Probably takes a long time to get everything agreed upon together, translate everyone on the same page.
I would say that the first time it probably took 4 or 5 times longer than we thought it would, but now we can hit it right on.
Yeah.
And it's a couple things. When the factory doesn't know you, they're not going to go out of their way for you if you're not claiming that you're going to make a large order and you don't have a big company behind you. Now that we're working with them, we can count on their delivery times, and also you just learn how to estimate. So right now I don't have a rule of thumb of doubling. I think we're usually right on in our predictions.
So if there was 3, just kind of narrow down to 3 lessons. If someone was going to look at manufacturing overseas, what are the 3 things that you would tell someone, and kind of what you learned?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I run into when I talk to people, just don't be afraid. It's not that big of a deal. It's a different country, and we're not used to that as Americans.
Yeah.
America's huge, so we don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
But we live on the earth, and there are lots of other countries here, and people just like you and me are doing things there. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just place the order in China. They're well-established financial technologies.
Just like everything else.
Yeah.
If you quit your job and go do a startup, that's taking a risk.
Right.
So it's the same risk almost. You just have to weigh the balance.
Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of. Go ahead and, don't be afraid of working overseas. I would say that would be the first one.
Yeah.
And then let's see another one. Yeah, translate. Even if you're talking to someone that speaks English, like technical stuff, write it 3 times in 3 different ways. Like
That's a good idea.
painfully exhausting. And
Yeah.
anything physical, like go for that. They're really good at copying but not inventing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like kind of a stereotype, but it's totally true. And they'll do the most ridiculous stuff. I mean, I'm generalizing, right? Same
Yeah,
thing.
for sure.
But in my experience, the generalization's okay with Chinese factories. And, you can't trust them to figure anything out or to do anything the way you would want it done or high quality.
Yeah.
Because they're going to cut costs wherever they can. So you send them exactly what you want, and then make sure do not do a production run until you have a sample, right? Even if it's something simple.
Yeah.
Like make sure you have a sample that you verify. So that'd be number 2,
Yeah.
and then number 3, I think having someone over there is critical. So
Find an ally.
Yeah, and there are lots of really hungry young entrepreneurs in China.
Lots of
Lots of millions, right, of trade agents that are willing to work with you. How you find one that doesn't screw you, honestly, I don't really know. Like we got lucky finding Ben.
Yeah.
Just try.
Interesting. Yeah.
There's a website called Alibaba.com.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
That's where we find all of our manufacturers. That's where they find them in China. When I go over there and work with Ben, we'll go on Alibaba and we'll be sitting in his office in Ningbo and say we're looking for a component for one of our new products. We find a list of them on Alibaba, we see the ones that are close by, and we get in his car and just start driving around to the factories. All the factories there are kind of cool. They're all very similar. Most of them are very similar. There's some really large ones like Foxconn.
Yeah.
But besides that, when you drive down a typical street in a Chinese factory village, there are these big concrete buildings, maybe 4 stories tall, big square things, no decoration on them, maybe a logo, and they all have a gate in front of them. And it's this like traditional thing, but there are all these, I can't really describe how they look, but they all the exact same like style of gate in front of them. And actually what's interesting about the gate thing, the way that they don't say someone went out of business, they say their gate has closed. It's like it's got to be like a Chinese traditional thing,
That's
but
so
you can always tell it's a factory because they got the specific gate in front of them. The gate has closed when they would go down.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, they all this very distinctive smell, and you can smell it at Costco or some of the retail stores that have boxes. Like Costco's got pallets that went right out of the container to the store.
And what kind of smell? How would you describe that?
It's kind of a dusty. It's not necessarily bad, but it's definitely like a dusty, maybe it's like a specific kind of clay or the particulates in there. Maybe it's like some metal shavings in the air with the dust. When you get off the plane there, especially in Shanghai, well, Beijing's worse, but just oppressive smog. And in Beijing, it smelled like burnt plastic when I got there the first time. Yeah, just everywhere smelled like burnt plastic, which is pretty rough. But so the factory's really cool. You go in there, they all have this very distinctive room that's for their Western guests that has their product showcase. And it's like, it's a very different culture there. Like for us, if we were trying to display our stuff, we would make it look nicer than it actually looks. Like we had this really clean room. They have a room that's just a little bit cleaner than everything else, but this is like dust everywhere. They've got they always have these nice big wood tables, and they come and they offer you cigarettes and Chinese tea.
Wow.
And
they're just you want
so
cigarettes?
sometimes they pressure you into smoking with them. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's pretty fun. So the first time I went into one of these rooms, I was going there and we were looking for cast iron. It was for my other company. We were looking for a cast iron factory. And they had all these, similar to the Le Creuset pots that you get, the cast iron pots with the enamel coating, right? They had a bunch of those, and I was looking around at them, and I found one that had a Martha Stewart Living stamp on it. It's well, I guess we know where she makes that, right? But yes, they're all kind of small, and there's just countless numbers of them. You find them on Alibaba. You call them up and drive there, and having a Chinese national call them is huge, because if you're an American and you contact them, they give you the American price.
Yeah.
But if you're a Chinese national, you can get maybe half the price. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's always an adventure over there.
God, so yeah, I mean that's part of the reason I really want to talk to you is that this experience such a young age. I know you're not that old, and it's like it's really forming the way that you're viewing business, and we're only going to do this more. Like this is the way business is going to be.
Well, yeah. So we're international now. We actually our largest distributors in Denmark. So like when I do business now, it's we're kind of equally spaced around the globe: Denmark, Shanghai, and Seattle. So yeah, it's actually pretty fun. But yeah, right now Zappa, we started 2 years ago, and we're operating on 3 continents.
God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So describe real quickly, and then I want to get into just a few kind of entrepreneurial like lessons and challenges and what we've been experiencing. But how you basically operate a global company in a way.
Yeah,
and
no, definitely.
So yeah, describe that experience, and really probably working fully virtual and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think it comes down to one of the things I learned when I was down Silicon Valley doing that tour down there of startups. These people that you really respect, that you've heard of, that you've seen on TV, they're just like you and me. They're nothing special about them at all. And that's how it feels to be operating business internationally. It's like you're sending emails. Sure, they have a different last name or whatever, but there's just nothing different. And it's not that special. It's not that hard. You just have to do it.
So if you could kind of pare it down into 1 or 2 things that you find that really helps you optimize your business when it is a global, like what are the few things that you would describe?
Optimizing.
And maybe you don't have much to go off of on the converse, but like...
Yeah, maybe not for optimizing necessarily, but it's like anything else. You just have to have a well-defined plan and know what it means, right? Like, we didn't just deploy into Europe because it was Europe or because it was international. We had a really awesome business opportunity there, right? And then we're not afraid to take advantage of it. But I think it's all about having a plan and executing on it.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't answer the question very well, but
it makes sense. And anyone that's watching this and considering going that direction, I think it's a good advice.
Just do it, right? I mean, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was talking to a friend. I'm an EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. I was talking to a friend this morning who's an EO, and he's trying to take his business to the next level. And I was talking with him about how when you've never done something before, you don't know what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's so hard the first time. It's scary the first time. It's hard to do. The second time, it's cake. Yeah. Like I could take a business to where we're at now in 1/10 the time.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe not with manufacturing because there's actual like physical time.
Yeah.
But once you've done it, you're not afraid to do it again.
Do you think it's knowledge, or do you think it's like confidence?
I think it's knowing what it feels like. It's confidence. It's not knowledge.
Yeah. What's really interesting, I've been having really interesting and cool conversations with typically the earlier stage founders, like a lot of first timers. Mm-hmm. And I'm noticing, I wrote about this recently, I'm noticing the same thing come out of numerous people's mouths, which is, and it's different words, but they're basically questioning themselves. And so they're struggling on something or a few things, but the underlying factor is they just don't believe in themselves enough. And what I'm trying to tell them is, you got to go do it. You just got to go do it.
Right.
You will get the confidence as you take those steps.
Yeah, I think you really have to. I usually don't like touchy-feely things that much, but I think you really have to visualize and see yourself doing it.
Yeah.
You are the person doing that right now. I actually just talked to someone who's thinking about starting a company, and they were wondering if they should do this thing that's not exactly their plan, but it's kind of along the way. I'm like, do it. Get it.
Find out.
Register as an LLC, get a brand, get a website, put yourself in that position. I am the CEO of this company. I don't care if there's nothing behind it. I don't care if you have $100 in the bank. Like, live and breathe it, and then it becomes real. And see yourself in that position. Because if you don't see yourself there, if you see it as unachievable, you're going to make decisions that make it unachievable.
Yeah. Right? No, and that's such. I love how you put that, because, and that's basically what I'm trying to tell people is, look, you can spend the next 3 months thinking about it, questioning it, talking to all your friends, or you can go do it.
Right.
And you will have a definite answer by the end of the 3 months. Okay, that didn't work, or holy crap, like we're actually doing this.
Yeah, when you I mean, I'm sure you see this all the time. When you have a startup, everyone you meet, family events or whatever, everyone's got this company that they've been wanting to do, this product they've been wanting to make. Everyone thinks they're a genius and they've got this product, this company, and no one else has done it yet, right? But these other people tried it and it wasn't right. Yeah, the ideas aren't special, dude. It's all about the execution.
Yep.
There's nothing special about an idea.
So how did you, I want to get into this, how did you overcome some of, because I know that, I mean, we've talked a lot about this, but like, when you hit those roadblocks, you hit the challenges, you're living in your girlfriend's place, and you just like are killing you're doubting yourself. What got you through that? Because there's few, people kind of deal with things differently, but what got you through to the next level?
I think kind of like three things. So there's the kind of like the thing Elon Musk said, like that's just how you're wired. Like to me, it was unacceptable to do anything else. Like my definition, like I total respect for anyone who works at Boeing, right? But my personal definition of failure is being an engineer at Boeing, right? I'd be making over 100,000. It'd be great.
Yeah.
I got great grades. I could have had that job right out of college. I don't want to do that. That is failure to me. Like that is next to suicide for me.
So let's break that down real quick, because anyone, if they're a Boeing engineer watching this, we're not knocking on them. But what you're saying is like the accepting of
mediocrity, or like the accepting of failure, like
not
and that would
challenging
be
yourself.
right. You're right. I guess it has nothing to do with Boeing, but
Yeah.
I know what I want to do, and that is my fallback, right? And if I go to my fallback, I know that I've given up on what I want to do, and that is failure to me. So my version of failure would be doing something steady. That if I wasn't doing a startup anymore, I'd have to fall back on something steady and pay off my debt or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would probably be an engineer at Boeing. Yeah. So you stick with it because it's unacceptable to do anything else.
Yeah.
Time is also a magic factor. Like you just get out there, you meet people, opportunities come up. And I think it's not so much like if you're wired to be an entrepreneur, forget the idea. Like bedbugs, it's a great market. I'm really glad we're doing it. I'd be doing something else if it wasn't this, and I'm sure it would have come up a month or two after, right? You got to stay out there. You're doing this
Same
too,
thing.
right?
Yeah.
Just not taking anything too seriously, and beer definitely helps. Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I think what you just touched on was the weird thing, and it's part of actually, I think maturing as an entrepreneur is actually understanding that some people aren't wired like this, right?
Right.
And, I fully respect, anyone that doesn't choose this path. But for me and for you, obviously, is like, you just like, it's just something that it's what we are wired differently.
Right.
And you look at Elon Musk, or you look at a guy like Steve Jobs, or any of the other founders around, largely successful or not, we just can't not do this, right? And I think that once you've identified that, then failure to you becomes falling back on the safe and the like, I'll just make 100 grand at working at so company.
I'll be comfortable.
Because you're not challenging yourself. And I think that's just like a realization that you go through in your entrepreneurial journey, where like you start to realize like, oh my God, like I was born to like kick my butt so many times to then continually challenge myself to then try different things to see success. And success is different from everyone. But going through your history, you didn't have to say that. I knew that you're like, of course I'm going to do all this crap for the rest of my life. I'm going to try things. I'm going to build companies. I'm going to, experiment with other products, because that's what we do, is we tinker and, and it's just weird. It's a wired way that other people are totally like, they don't get it, right?
Yeah, no, I think the don't get it's the best explanation, because a lot of people just don't.
They just don't get it.
Just don't get it, yeah.
So we'll wrap up here in a second, but talk about your lowest point and then what you did to get through it.
I hope my mom's not watching. Actually my lowest point, so after Equal failed and I was living with my girlfriend, man, I was, is it Ben Hua, how do you pronounce his last name? Cheeseburger Networks? Ben Hua.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben Hua. He had a great post on it a couple years ago when he thought about suicide, right? And I think few people will actually talk about that, because when you fail, especially the first time, and you don't know you're going to survive past that, like your entire identity's been associated with something that's died.
Yeah.
Like I was semi-suicidal for sure and very depressed.
Yeah.
Probably my low point was I spent maybe 2 weeks just watching movies every day and drinking. To be honest, watching movies every day and drinking. And this particular day I took some muscle relaxants, and I was on Alki. Went for a little walk, and I was at the Starbucks in Alki, and I fell over inside the Starbucks because I was so fucked up.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I fell over inside the Starbucks, and I was like, wow, this is the low point of my life right now. So I would say that's definitely my low point.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough. Given that, what did you do next? Because there's definitely the low point.
Oh, right, because you bounce around, right?
Yeah. I mean, you obviously had a realization.
So yeah, no, after that, I got the job at Direct Global Sales, the third startup, the overseas manufacturing one. Gosh, like a week or two later, right? And then things started coming around, and that started going poorly, and then Zapbug started picking up. I don't know, in my life so far, so I'm 25, I graduated college when I was 21. So 4 years. I would say I've gone through like probably 4 major up and down cycles in the 4 years. Like I can tell you, Zapbug, I mean, we're still very cash strapped, and you have to be very cash conscious, but 6 months ago, I thought it was gonna fail.
Yeah.
And now we're doing very well. So yeah, it's just up and down.
And I think, part of the lesson and part of why we do Founders Draw, literally, like why we're sitting here right now is to talk about this and explain that it's like this all the time. And,
right.
Said
it's like a Jim McGrath story, the chamber and the going up and down. The most painful thing was, I mean, honestly, it cycles very quickly, and we could lose everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I know what I'm gonna do. Right.
You go do something else, right?
Yeah.
And I think, talking about failures is definitely like needed, and talking about, I think it's more like how we need to talk about how we can get better, and if there are people dealing with this, like what are the ways that we can help people through it. And that to me is the most important thing. I mean, there was like some major suicides that happened last year and a couple of years. That shouldn't happen, right? And like when people are at that point, they need to be able to come out and say like, look, I am really struggling with this, and I'm pissed that I failed, but how can we as a community help others that are going through that? And I think that at least talking about
about it's really important. To know you're not alone. That's extremely common.
Yeah.
It's extremely common. There's nothing to be...
Yeah.
It's hard when you're in that position because you feel like a failure and you don't want to reach out to other people, but I could tell anyone watching this or anyone in the future, like, I've been there before, and totally reach out to me. Let's like talk about it.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay. I think it's the biggest thing you learn. The first time is the hardest, but once you go through it the first time, you realize life goes on. You're gonna be okay. Like, it's not over at all. Assess the damages and move on.
Yeah. And I mean, given your story, like I've had my stuff or whatever, but I dealt with that too, and I didn't necessarily think about ending it. I've written about some things before, but to me it was just like when you have a dream and a vision and you work on it for a number of years, and then basically you realize that you're down the wrong road, or you're lost, or you have no clear direction after that, that's a really difficult place to be emotionally and psychologically. And with if we can just create a culture that is more open to talking about what can I do now, what's next, as opposed to trying, like every time you go to Meetup, it's like, hey, how are things going? Oh, really good. Really?
Right.
Like, I think the question is, I think it's more like, how are you doing? How can I help you? What are you struggling with right now that I can help you with? Now you've opened the door for someone to be like, dude, let's grab coffee next week because I need to talk about some stuff.
Yeah, so right now I'm in this group called EO, and that's really good. So we've got these forums, and we call it Bringing It, but people are very honest about what's happening, right? And you can take anything there and be honest, but one thing that separates EO from the community that I've seen that I would really like to find a solution around is a little bit of vetting, right? So you've got everyone wants to do a startup, and you've got these people that they want to do business networking and not talk about startups. Mm-hmm. And when you get people like that involved, it's hard to be honest about what's actually happening as a startup because you get people that will never experience what you're talking about. And it'd be interesting to find a solution around that. I've got a couple ideas, but I think that problem needs to be solved because if you can't expose yourself to people who won't understand or who will never understand, I think it's just very hard to do.
Yeah. I totally agree, man. Well, I appreciate the conversation.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.